Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Enemy advanced in the south. Russian airfields observation. Prom in a bomb shelter. Vietnam turns to the west. My question to Budanov. Ālea, Iacta Est. According to morning information from several sources, Russians have advanced in the area of two settlements, Novoalexandrivka and Sokil, which are located in the Donetsk region. Our military reports that despite the advance, Russians do not have complete control over Novoalexandrivka. Of course, I started looking for information about this village because I don't even know where exactly it is located in the Donetsk region, and I come from Donetsk region. According to Wikipedia, this is a small village with a population of 693 people. I have circled these two settlements in red, and here on the zoom out you can see the scale of this progress. I won't say anything new. Russians are advancing 100 meters a month, losing 1,000 people for every meter, but they are advancing. It may not look effective, but the most important thing here is that for every meter of land captured, we will have to go in the opposite direction. Unless, of course, they want to commit another act of goodwill, as the case in Kyiv, Kharkiv and Kherson regions. The whole country is working on this. Under the video, there will be a link to a Wikipedia article dedicated to Novoalexandrivka to confirm my words. Although it says that village was captured by Russians in June 2024, but there is no official confirmation of this yet. Analyst Anton Shvets published interesting material with the link to the original Associated Press investigation, which I want to talk about. In this photo, you see an ordinary field in the Belgorod region, which borders Ukraine. The photo was taken in August 2023. Even for people who do not understand the military science, it looks like an ordinary green field. Perhaps there is wheat growing there or something. And this photo was taken recently in June. You can easily see the huge runway that crosses the green fields. Russians are building a new airfield to bomb the Kharkiv region with air bombs, which I often talk about lately because this is one of our biggest problems that we are not yet able to solve. According to Anton Shvets, Russians are currently using 51 air bases against us within 600 kilometers of the territories that Ukraine controls. This includes 3 air bases in the occupied territories, probably including the Mariupol airport, which I talked about yesterday's video, plus 6 air bases in the occupied Crimea and 32 on the territory of Russian Federation, and of course a dozen of air bases in Belarus, which, as we know from their national anthem, are peaceful people. In this photo you see how an ordinary Russian guy, who of course doesn't want war, works at a factory for the production of aero bombs, which are flown to Kharkiv every day. In the photo, Fab 1500 is a powerful bomb weighing 1.5 tons, which causes enormous destruction. This is an ordinary dump bomb, to which Russians attach a navigation system and wings that help it plans further and kill more Ukrainians. Such modernization costs Russians about $20,000 for each bomb, on top of the cost of production of the bomb itself, which is unknown. After modernization, it can fly up to 65 kilometers, and this is still beyond the scope of our air defense systems. Of course, a Patriot system can intercept it, but this raises the question of how safe it is to move valuable air defense system worth $1 billion closer to the front line. Considering how hard we are now negotiating to get at least 7 Patriot systems to protect large cities, this is simply not profitable. It sounds terrible. It is not profitable to save these particular people. But war has its own terrible economy. Russians still have the advantage in the skies. We still cannot defend ourselves completely, and every such dumb bomb passes through our air defense systems, takes lives and monotonously destroys those cities that Russia cannot seize from their land. I really want to believe that the F-16s will be a change, but my optimism is always too cautious. I always prepare for the worst. This photo is from Kharkiv. Our teenagers celebrate graduation in a bomb shelter. 10 years ago, when the war began, they went to school, and throughout the 10 years of school, they lived with this in the background. Imagine a child goes to school the year the war began and graduates when the war has already come to Kharkiv and destroyed your school. This is exactly the situation in this photo. This is a school in the Kharkiv region in the town of Dergachi. I have a friend from there. They had to move further south due to constant Russian air raids. Here you see teenagers posing for a group photo. I remember my graduation in Mariupol in 2004, and it was a holiday. We were all excited and optimistic entering adulthood. Now, 20 years later, I don't know which of my classmates are still alive, but I know who is fighting on the front lines, and I know who betrayed the country and works for Russians, despite the fact that they destroyed their hometown. Life is crazy. I became interested in how graduations were held during the Second World War, and I found this article. It's impossible to say how many proms or dances were cancelled or simply not held during World War II, either due to wartime shortages such as paper rationing or simply born out of a feeling that a mass celebration was inappropriate while the country was endangered in all-out global war. Nevertheless, whether you attended your high school prom this year or not, or even many years prior, these images show that optimistic spirit of youth never changes, even if the hairstyles, fashion choices, and societal challenges do. It's so interesting that the author describes graduations in the USA in the 40s, but in the end it sounds very similar to what we see today in Ukraine. In this photo, the head of Vietnamese Foreign Ministry, Bui Thanh Son, smiles mysteriously at the camera. Vietnam is ready to work with the United States to promote a comprehensive strategic partnership for effective, stable, and meaningful development based on respect for each other's independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political institutions, which is in interest of people of both countries for the sake of peace, stability, cooperation, and development in region, he said immediately after Putin's visit to Vietnam. As part of his shameful touring attempts to find at least some allies in the company of Russia, Belarus, Iran, and North Korea. Just a dream team ordered from Wish. Vietnam officially has a communist system, not cosplay like in Putin's Russia. And Vietnam is definitely not leading world power, but even looking at all this, they call the United States a partner of strategic importance, despite the fact that we all know the history of relations between the United States and Vietnam. I believe some important talks happened on the backstage. I've never been into world politics and international relations as I am now. It's so interesting to see how the world transforms in front of your eyes. I would like to survive this war to see what will happen in the end. Ukraine's Man of Secrets opens up was the title of an interview with Question To Budanov, head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, in the Philadelphia Inquirer. A very funny headline, as if General Budanov revealed state secrets to them. Every interviewer is trying to make a sensation out of Budanov's interview, and this is understandable. He's a very popular figure in this war and one of the key players. Everyone wants a piece of his glory. The first 5 minutes of reading the interview, I was like, I've already seen this text. The journalist again talked about 10 attempts on the life of General, about the fact that his headquarters is located on the island. By the way, right across the road from this place there is a skate park where I often skated before the war. That's such an unusual neighborhood. Then they tell why there is an O on the logo of our intelligence service and blah blah blah. To be honest, I studied the interview for 20 minutes, and the only thing that was more or less fresh was the discussion of the possible return of Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States. This is probably the only blog that is worth reading. I have a calm attitude to the possibility of Trump coming to power, he said. Your elections are very unpredictable. If you analyze his public speeches, he has changed his position several times. And the power of your system is that it doesn't allow one individual to make decisions unilaterally. In the end, I believe in the USA and that we will reach to victory together. And here I am emphasizing together. This is what I would like to finish with. Indeed, as Ukrainian officials are starting to hedge their bets about the Trump win, I can't help thinking that Budanov might be one Ukrainian who could appeal to Trump as daring-do military figure who wins and can show exciting video of the new style of drone warfare. I like General Budanov because he's always logical, restrained in his statements, and firm in his values. I never noticed that he tried to earn himself any popularity points through loud statements or empty promises. This is man of tactics. I bet he's a good chess player. What would I ask if I had the chance to interview General Budanov? I understand that this is one of the most interesting persons to interview and extremely difficult character for an interviewer. Asking when will the Belarusians attack, or When will Putin launch a nuclear missile? Is bad manners and unprofessionalism? I would like to discuss with him in details one single fundamental question. How would he like to see the opponents after our victory? I mean that Russia will still exist in one form or another, and a million security service employees, Russian spies and agents around the world will not disappear, and the confrontation between our countries is forever, is historical. It will increase or decrease like a sine wave. Since General Budanov is responsible for the enemy, as he says, I would not ask him about our forces, but specifically about how he would like to determine in what form the functioning of the Russian special services would be acceptable, and I'm sure that this issue will appear in the International Tribunal after Russia finally accepts its defeat. Let's just say when the time comes to determine new rules of the game with the new government of the Russian territory, with which the world leaders will agree to negotiate, not with the constantly lying Putin, but with some new leader of Russia who would take responsibility for the consequences of this terrible bloody war that his country unleashed. This is also a debatable topic for conversation, what Russia should be like after this shameful defeat in the war. It seems to me that General Budanov is one of those who should determine the main contours of this issue. Somehow he reminds me of Sir Winston Churchill. The head of the headquarters of the 12th Special Forces Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, Azov, Bogdan Krotevich, with the call sign Tovar, published a post that caused a lot of noise in society over the past day. To understand the context, this man went through all the battles for Mariupol from the first day, was one of those who held the defense of my city against superior enemy forces, was in Russian captivity, and after exchange of prisoners of war returned to duty and continues to fight in one of the most difficult sectors on the front, in the Serebransky forest in the Lugansk region in the east of Ukraine. I don't always agree with his statements that I hear, which is normal, but I respect his opinion and he is definitely one of the heroes of this war. I will quote his voluminous post in full so as not to lose important details. Everything is important there. I am quite a sentimental person, empathetic to some extent. Understanding that there is a war going on in Ukraine, having a responsibility to the country, society, fellow citizens, I try to solve one or another problem in such a way that it doesn't harm anyone. And as I already said, I really believe in a conscious form of diplomacy, when you can reasonably explain to people what they are wrong about and what it can lead to. This is why I always try to convey a very important problem, which is sometimes impractical to spread it publicly. But it also happens that the majority don't care. For example, on failed internal communication. Sometimes it seems that some people completely forget about their own people and troops when communicating with the Americans and other Western partners. I call this form of communication frost. And probably, if I was interested in personal benefit, I would be silent because it has almost no effect on me at the moment. But it affects Ukraine's victory in the war. I wrote a letter to the State Bureau of Investigation calling for an investigation into one military general who, in my opinion, killed more Ukrainian soldiers than any Russian general. I don't care if they start an investigation against me, and I don't care if they put me in jail. I care that combatants and commanders are judged for the loss of an observation post. But the general is not judged for the loss of regions and dozens of cities and the loss of thousands of soldiers. The conditions under which the brigades are currently fighting, I will say this, is unreal heroism. First of all, for soldiers, platoon commanders, battalions and brigades, and their heroism lies in the fact that they restrain the enemy not thanks to, but in spite of. Sometimes I think the world sends us scumbags to rally us. And all the military now understand what person I'm talking about, because 99% of the military hate him for what he does. This person initiates investigations against commanders who advance and do not lose ground, but he doesn't initiate official investigations against himself. It got me, the Rubicon has been crossed. You need to understand that the military often resort to media publicity of directions not leading to a better life. Our form of government, unfortunately, is like this. At the moment, this is the only possibility to change the situation. This is a fact. I don't care a bit about myself, and the only thing I will always be ashamed of is if I didn't do earlier. At the moment, this is the only possibility to change the situation. This is a fact. I don't care a bit about myself, and the only thing I will always be ashamed of is that I didn't do it earlier. Fate favors the brave, and some creatures are helped by the fact that most remain silent due to the understanding of consequences of a personal vendetta against themselves and their units. Therefore, I know that this is my personal decision and I fully accept the consequences. This is a statement that the Lieutenant Colonel felt accusing the general of war crimes or criminal negligence that led to loss of a significant number of military personnel. We do not know the details of this document. Perhaps it will become available in the future. This is a brave act that can cost him a lot, and such things happen extremely rarely. I respect a person who is willing to risk his life for his principles in the fight for justice. By the way, I do not believe that justice exists in its pure form, but I believe that justice can be achieved through struggle. This is literally what our entire country is doing now. In Ukraine we say, fate favors the brave, as he said in his speech. I really hope that Lieutenant Colonel Kratevich will achieve his goals. Several other important events took place. Firstly, Crimea received a very decent portion of missiles and several military objects were confirmed to be hit. In particular, another air defense system burned down with a large-scale secondary detonation. Secondly, Odessa was subjected to a missile attack and our air defense missed the Russian Iskander and it hit the target. I wanted to make a blog about this news, but essentially we have just another hundredth or thousandth video of a burning building and several victims. Just saying this out loud so you remember that we continue to suffer from Russian missiles every day. All other texts are still in progress. I'm waiting for details and confirmation, without which there is no point in guessing how it was. I wrote this text in a cafe running between hospitals and dealing with blackouts. I'm already receiving messages that people find this information little by little. Thanks for your support. This was my update on the Russian-Ukrainian war for day number 852. Take care and see you tomorrow.